and I think this is the biggest failure that game streaming platforms have right now is just the fact that latency kills streaming, right? So as soon as you, for almost any game, unless it's a puzzle game or a casual game or turn-based game where you don't need an immediate response if you like click a button or you tap something, the native part becomes extremely important, because that's really the only way that you can get that latency as close to zero as possible, right? And so our Android and our PC apps actually have a native component in them, which securely connects to our cloud platform and can then stream the games at the lowest latency possible. And so how this works is,
hi everyone, welcome to the 8th episode of Game UX Alchemists. As you can see today, we have a very special and unusual lineup, where we have Kurt returning for this episode, and we have a new guest, Mac.
Hello.
How are you doing, Mac?
Doing good. Surviving the Spanish heat right now, because it's got a bit of a heat wave going where I'm located, but surviving.
Yeah, and that's when I'm jealous of Kurt, because I believe it's winter down there, which I really miss.
yeah, I'm not sure anybody misses the Cape Town winters. It's super wet and rainy. Today it's nice and sunny though. It's the first one in about 2 weeks.
I just miss wearing a sweater, because like I'm seeing you with that nice woolly looking sweater, all cozy. I'm thinking, God damn, I wish that was.
I have 3 layers on, Mac. It's not just a sweater.
Really?
That's how I thrive.
Yeah, but yeah, could you please just quickly in 1 minute explain, Mac, who you are and what's your job at Antidote?
Sure thing, happy to. Well, I'm Mac, or Mackenzie for my formal name, and I am currently, I guess you could call me the panel and community manager at Antidote, which essentially consists of me, as it says in the title, managing the player journey and experience within the Antidote community, essentially. So, as the viewers may know, Antidote has a pretty robust panel of players from across the globe who have accounts with us, and these people, of course, they take part in our playtest. They receive invites and hop in, and it's essentially my job here to guide them through the process of joining. I find them, go through the demographics and the different player profiles that we have on our platform. I filter through them, and I eventually select the ones that we deem apt for the different playtests. I then provide them with accommodation, virtual accommodation, as in instructions, guidance, support, up to the point where they're all ready and fully informed to take part in all of our various playtests across the Antidote sphere. And that's basically it. I guide them through their Antidote experience, recruiting them, screening them, providing them support and moderation, and ultimately, once they're fully prepared and ready to go, I then hand them over to Joanne's UX team, who then actually run the playtest themselves. So that's sort of a overarching description of my main task, you could say. But it also comes with other fun, exciting parts of the job, like engagement, which of course consists of running fun community events and quiz nights and or anything we can think of, really, to just try and keep our community engaged. Because depending on the user, quite a bit of time can go between playtest and playtest. There's not enough to go around for everybody, so we've got to find ways of keeping people entertained in the meantime, as well as just in general answering questions and just having a chat with our players. Making them feel welcome, making them feel like there's more to Antidote than just sitting staring at your inbox waiting for an email to come through to take part.
Awesome, thank you for explanation. Sounds much more fun than what I do. Not going to lie, but well, thanks for coming today, because we are discussing a very important topic in the UX research space, which is security, which is all the time is a big elephant in the room, right? Conducting remote playtests. And I brought the best team to help me talk about this topic today. And to start with, Let's be direct. Let's not beat around the bush. Costa, as a lead UX researcher, who not better ask this question? You speak with studios every week, right? You run the remote playtests for Antidote and for our clients. What are some of the most common security concerns you hear? Like when we say security in playtesting, what do we mean? Like what are the main issues?
I mean, the first question that we normally get is like, okay, but will this player have my game? Do we have any control on them? And obviously, we have already our monologue to explain how all the process works instead for to make sure that it's confidential, because we have NDAs, and this is normally one of the first things that we just mentioned, that we have these legal documents that players have to accept or even sign and provide information to fill them in some of the cases. Also, we have more other technical aspects in our platform, like a SDK, the security process to download and install the game automatically, that Kurt will explain and talk about it further than myself. And the idea, when we explain to the clients that we play test remotely, what we have to make sure is that they understand that it's not like us sending a build, the exe file to the client. We make sure that they understand that all the process is secure, because the client, our players, don't receive the game itself. They have to go through the platform, and it's a process that it tries to be as most secure as possible in terms of, okay, players won't be able to launch the game because we have the SDK. Players won't have to install anything manual because we want to keep it hide. And all these extra layers that, as I said, Kurt knows all more detail than me, because I think he coded almost all of it.
I think so. Every single feature.
Exactly. But yeah, the idea normally it's like, okay, how do you secure that my game won't end up in a bad place? And this is the main concern for the clients.
Yep, and you beautifully summarized basically all the today's topics, because that's all the valid and real concerns, right, that you hear. And I believe in Antidote we split the security into 4 different layers, right? How we tackle different stages and different levels, which were player confidentiality, secure game distribution, technical safeguards, and our UX Gamelab in Barcelona. So I wanted to touch upon these layers of security more in depth. And let's start with player confidentiality, because as you just briefly mentioned, Costa, it's very important, right? Because you play testing remote, and I guess you would have the inherent fear of players not following the rule. And that's when normally our Mac, who handles all the communications, the recruitment, deals with it. I just wanted to ask you, Mac, how does the process look like? What's involved, and how do you ensure this compliance is followed?
So, just sort of give a bit of an example of what the worst case scenario is, of course, is a player not being aware that they are breaking NDA, because if they are willingly and knowingly breaking an NDA, of course, then there is you can then move on to the legal defense line. But if it's a case of the player having not been aware of it, then of course that's kind of fallen on your shoulders when it comes to how you communicated it, how aware you've made that player that they cannot store or share any information or any data on the game that they are playing as part of this playtest. So really, it's you need to get the player to explicitly agree to following the NDA that they are agreeing to, and making sure they're fully aware that they have agreed to that NDA. So of course, there's a technical aspect to this as well, because as Kurt can inform the viewers, there's actual fail-safes built into the platform in that sense, where the user has to actually physically accept an NDA agreement and has to physically click a tick box saying, I have read and understand that I cannot stream, share, record, talk about, even think about this game after, obviously not that, but I can't do anything with the data that I've gathered from this game, whether it be mental or physically gathered, through data or screenshots or whatever. I can't do anything with that information. It's obviously summarized much more eloquently than I've just worded it. That was a big word salad, but they have to physically agree to that term before our platform actually allows them to start the playtest. And that's a very important part when it comes to communication. But way before that point, when I'm sort of communicating with these users and, the sort of first step into recruiting players into a playtest is obviously we check the demographics on our platform. We find a sample of users from whatever regions or demographics we're looking for. And I would then, put together, design a screener survey, and I would send that to these users saying, hey, by the way, we've got a playtest coming up. You may be a good fit. Fill out the screener, and we'll see if you are a good fit, and we can use you in this playtest. Now, that initial email that they receive will already include a disclaimer, sort of a legal, very serious. We go for quite a casual tone in Antidote. We're gamers ourselves here, so we're not all formal and legal and stuff in our emails. We're trying to be regal and, casual and quite close with our player base. But the one section of that email that they get that sounds like a lawyer talking to you is the disclaimer in the email saying, look, this is NDA protected and you cannot share any of this information, etc., etc. After that point, they get into the screener and they will need to physically agree saying you are aware that this playtest, if you are accepted, will be fully NDA protected. You will not be able to share any information, and they need to click yes. If they click no, they will be excluded from our filtering process. So before they even get to the point that they can even participate in the playtest, they've already agreed to an NDA 2 times. You could even say 3, because when they create an account with Antidote, before I've even contacted them for a playtest, when they create their account, they then also must agree that they will not share any information on the games that they play through Antidote. So 3 agreements previous to even being given access to the game. And, they're not just there and they can ignore them. No, they actually do need to click on it and physically agree and read and agree to what they're saying before they're given access to the game. Yeah. So, you've got a lot of reiteration there. You've got active participation from the player. And you've got repetition, and that's obviously very important. So yeah, that's sort of how we go about it from a communication standpoint, at least.
And sorry to intervene. I know that in some special cases, for even extra security, some of our clients opt for ID verification, right? From what I heard. Can you just explain? Can you just quickly explain this process and what does it entail?
Yes.
Oh, me.
No, Marco Costa. Sorry, I'm not sure who you.
Oh,
yes,
I can go.
I did. Oh, yeah. Well,
all yours.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I'm muting myself.
Oh, well, that kind of forces me into talking. All right, then. Put me on the spot like that. Okay, yeah. So, when it comes to, ID verification, that is by request. It's not for every project. We usually get asked to apply this to projects when, we're talking about a real top secret game, like, there's not even any public awareness. There's no actual official announcement or any knowledge of the game even existing yet in the public sphere. It's very hush hush still. Probably still has a code name. So when it is asked of us from our clients, there's 2 ways to go about it. Sometimes we actually do have a third-party software integrated into our platform that we do use. Or we actually, if it's a smaller scale project and we're talking maybe 20 to 50 players requested, we do actually revise these ourselves. And how this works essentially is we will ask the players during the screening process for this project in particular. We will need to verify your ID. We explain why. In the case of a leak and stuff, it's so that there's accountability. In the worst case scenario of there being a leak. Would you be okay with this? Are you comfortable? Are you happy to share a screenshot and or photocopy of your ID with us? And the player will accept this, and the players that accept this obviously get through that blockade in the sign up procedure. And then if it's a lot of users, we do sometimes have used a third party software. that gathers these IDs and it uses a sort of automated process to verify their veracity. And if it's a smaller scale one, like I said, ballpark estimate anywhere from 1 to 2 players to 15, more or less, we will, we've actually got it integrated directly into our platform, where if the players we've selected for these play tests, we will activate this module on their player profile within the Antidote application, where they can click a button to simply upload their ID, and then we can verify it. And if it all looks good, that player then becomes permanently verified. So they will then have a ID verified tick essentially on their profile. So if there's any future playtest that a client comes to us with where they also want ID verification, we will have this within our database, which of course is Kurt's speciality, but we will have that information so we can sort of fast track those users into these play tests that require ID verification, and they don't need to go through the process again, basically. Yeah.
Awesome. So before the playtest even begins, there's already so many security steps.
Oh yeah, it's important.
But also, one other thing regarding the ID verification, other good thing that were related to what Mark was mentioning, and now in the latest part, that as they are, normally we do it by request, but also we are trying to grow as much as possible the verified people in our community. So normally also we tend to send random invites to complete this process to players. So we always increase to make sure that the majority of players possible have completed this process at the end. It's something that they do once, and it's verified for forever. So it's an extra bonus for them and for us. So we always try to increase it as much as possible for requested playtest or some random invites to complete.
Speaking of this, I had a further question for you, Costa. I believe we have a feature called Steam and Xbox Connect, which helps to connect to the Antidote and verify the legitimacy of the types of game. Could you please explain a little bit more how they work and how does it enhance the?
I mean, security related, I don't think there's an extra of security here. It's just security in the validation of the profile. Because this way we make sure that they have played the hours they mention in the recruitment, so we can double check, or we can just pre-filter with certain information on, okay, you have linked your Steam library. We can know that you have played more than 1,000 hours in Counter-Strike. You have played 2 hours in Peak, for example, because you just bought it. And you have played 500 hours in Dota 2. So we can just pre-filter there. And as I said, this is not something extra in security. It's in the security of the validation profile.
Yeah, and you know what? I would say actually there is a, even if it's just tangential, there is a small association to security you can find within the Steam Connect and Xbox Connect features, which is essentially player investment in Antidote, in the sense that, of course, we haven't gotten into the topic yet. I'm sure, Eileen, that you have it on the itinerary for today's discussion, but there is always going to be bad actors. There are always going to be players who will try to find the loopholes and will try to get through our systems, of course, and we do have ways to avoid bad actors. But when it comes to bad actors, in general, we can sort of make the initial hypothesis, at least, that a player who has gone through the effort and has invested their trust in Antidote enough to share their Steam libraries with us and integrate their Steam accounts and their Xbox accounts with their Antidote account, it's not security, but there is more a more implicit trust from our behalf in that user. We can trust that they are going to have a lower no-show rate. No-show rates referring to people who are actually going to show up to the playtest on the day, because they're people who, again, are more invested in the playtesting process than a user with a brand new account who doesn't have any of the extra optional features added to their accounts either. So there is a slight implication of security in that, we can invest a bit more trust in a player who has actually engaged with our platform to its utmost extent and activated all of these extra optional features that they can activate on their accounts for us to know them better as a player and as a person, essentially, for our playtesting needs.
Awesome. Thank you for adding this. I always found this feature very useful and interesting. I don't think anyone else does it. I think it's just Antidote. So
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was awesome to hear from the how we handle the player side. Now I would like to come to Kurt, talk about a bit more technical elements. And let's start with the game distribution, right? Which is one of the first things that comes to client's mind, right? Because as it's remote, you need to find safe ways to distribute the game. And we have, I believe with Antidote, there's multiple ways they can distribute the games. So Kurt, may you please, the floor is yours. Explain different ways you can do that and what features are doing.
Sure. So I think it depends on which platform we're talking about as well, because obviously we do support a wide range of platforms, right? So everything from web through to Android, iOS, Mac, PC, and all of them obviously have different ways of, I guess different levels of walled gardens. So if you look at something like iOS, there's no way for us to realistically host the game builds ourselves. And so typically we rely on either test flights or some other third-party store that, the customer might already be using to host builds. Whereas on Android, it's much more open, right? And so you can either host it on Google Play, you can host an APK directly on Google Drive if you really want to, or you can host it on our platform. And it's a similar story with Windows, where it's also very open, right? You have game launchers, so you have Steam that we support natively. There's GOG. Again, some customers might want to self-host game builds, which is perfectly fine, or they can host it with us. And when we look at some of the platforms, so for example, Android and PC, we also do support cloud builds. And so what we do there is we've actually built out an entire game streaming platform. We never actually distribute the game assets directly to the players, and instead, it's hosted in our secure environments, and players essentially just stream the game onto their phones or onto their tablets, or onto their PCs. So I think we've tried to be we've tried to solve this problem in the broadest way possible, which is awesome because all of our customers have lots of choices. But in doing so, I think we've also been able to, I guess, build the most secure platform as well, because you now have multiple options where the game, never reaches the player's hardware, or we can automatically inject SDKs to better control the security layers if it does reach their hardware. And then, of course, we've done a bunch of other things for specific platforms, for like Windows, where we can encrypt and obfuscate builds, and we do a bunch of I guess tech magic to keep things more secure for our customers.
That's awesome.
I like the concept tech magic. But
sometimes it feels like it. Sometimes it feels like it.
I mean, for example, you were mentioning the cloud streaming also SDK. I have seen that we have done a recent playtest that there was a combination with the cloud gaming and the SDK that it was like the maximum secure point of view. I think that it had everything in that process, and it was really cool to see that.
So can you just explain just a little bit more how it works, Kurt? I know you mentioned the streaming, but so that means the players never get like the assets and the files, right? The build.
Yeah. So we've built into our Android and our PC apps essentially like a native streaming component. And so the native part here is extremely important because, whenever, and I think this is the biggest failure that game streaming platforms have right now is just the fact that latency kills streaming, right? So as soon as for almost any game, unless it's a puzzle game or a casual game or turn-based game where, where you don't need an immediate response if you like click a button or you tap something. The native part becomes extremely important because that's really the only way that you can, get that latency as close to zero as possible. Right? And so our Android and our PC apps actually have a native component in them, which securely connects to our cloud platform and can then stream the games at the lowest latency possible. And so how this works is a customer will upload their build like they normally do. So there's no difference there. They can tick the box that they want to set it up as a cloud streamed game. And then that's pretty much it. Our platform handles everything for them. So it handles everything from SDK injection to securely deploying the game to as many servers as you need. And then when the playtest needs to be kicked off and players try to connect, our platform then tries to pair a player with a cloud instance which is closest to them, again, to try to reduce the latency as much as possible. And then, that native component takes over and makes sure that everything runs as smoothly as possible.
Awesome. And you mentioned SDK a few times. For us non-technical folk, can you please explain what that means, how it works, and what are the benefits for studios to do it?
Yeah. So SDK stands for Software Development Kit. And essentially, I think the best way to think of it is, most of the studios that we work with will either use an engine like Unity or Unreal or Godot. And so our SDK is effectively just a plugin, right? So you download the plugin, you follow. It's about 5 or 6 steps depending on the platform that you're building for. And then what our SDK then does is it adds a bunch of stuff, right? So the very first thing that it does is it adds launch protection. And so basically what this means is that it prevents a player from trying to start the game if they are not assigned to the project, if the project is not open yet, or if the project is closed, if the project is closed. And it also prevents the project, the game from being launched directly, right? So what happens is that our native apps will actually launch the games on behalf of the player, and that then kicks off a number of security protocols to make sure that the player is who they say they are, is played from a device that is actually registered with us, etc., etc. And then the other big thing that it adds is also watermarking. And so obviously, even with cloud streaming, it might still be very sensitive IP, and you don't want players to be able to leak videos or images or anything of that sort. And so what our SDK does is it also adds watermarking to the game, and you can fully control it. The style of the watermark, colors, and things like that. And the watermarking is effectively just a combination of a timestamp, the antidote user ID, and then in the case of cloud streaming, it also includes the user's IP. And it's really just to serve as a deterrent, to deter players from trying to share IP, whether that be screenshots or videos. And then, of course, those are the two big ones. And then on PC, we also have a number of other security controls which gets added through our SDK, which includes everything from monitoring for malicious processes and things like that. So again, we've got it's a very broad solution, but again, it gives the customer lots of options.
It does indeed.
Yeah, and the most fascinating part of all of this, especially with the cloud point, it's that the player's journey, it's super simple. I mean, you have added so extra security features and steps, but the player is just like a standard playtest, go play, click play, and you will have the game in front of you in 10 seconds. But yeah, that's also some extra things that it's a wow effect.
Also, I know Kurt described the technical elements of these features, but when you actually start the project on our platform, right? It's still like you can launch in under 10 minutes. I know it's quite technical what Kurt said, but most of it is just plug and play, like he said, right? You just press a few buttons and everything is integrated.
Exactly. And so the team spent a lot of time trying to get that right, because I think the most important feedback that we got from customers trying to use our SDK is that, game devs are always under crunch, right? And it's very difficult to justify setting aside time to implement something that's not related to the actual game build. And so we spent a long time trying to automate things as much as possible, to the point where, like you said, Alim, when a customer uploads a game build, there's 2 or 3 checkboxes that they need to tick, depending on the platform that they're using. And then our platform will then go off and automatically inject whatever is required to make the SDK work with no dev needed on the customer side. And that goes for Android, it goes for PC as well. And we are investigating how to do this on iOS, obviously, because Apple is a much more walled garden ecosystem. It's much harder. But I think we might have a solution to it.
We'll be excited to see in the future. But thank you for explaining all these technical parts. At Antidote, we have a 4th security level, which, doesn't technically apply to remote playtesting, but we do have a dedicated UX Gamelab in Barcelona, right? Which actually costs you run a few tests on it, right?
Yeah, and I'm actually in the lab right now.
Perfect.
Yes, we have
a future episode is going to need to give us a bit of a Gamelab tour. Have a little look.
Oh, there's some confidential things I cannot share here.
Maybe
good excuse. That's a good excuse.
Exactly. No, I'm just tired. I don't want to stop that. But yes, we have the lab here that we have used for very confidential projects. The idea that we of this playtest, it's normal. Sometimes there are clients that, due to high IPs or because they don't trust the remote or system, even we have validated it many times, they just prefer to go more like old school and be in the presential environment. Everything is closed. We have our own PCs. All the games are installed locally, and we have control over all the PCs. Players that come here also have to sign an NDA here. So we have make sure that before going into the PC room, we have all the documentation signed and the playtest, and they just have to play. In these cases, we don't normally use this extra SDK feature because, as we said, we have this everything controlled to our lab and our own PCs, so we manage what it's being happening in the PCs. Also, all the recording and everything it's doing locally, so no streaming is done from the players that from the PC that players are playing, and only if the clients requested, we can prepare a streaming direct to them. And also we try to avoid having different PCs streaming. We just do only one PC as a point of contact to the stream. So we stream everything from one only PC, so we have control that if we close that, everything will be shut down. And the idea here is to have this like cage where all the information is in our labs and nothing goes outside the system.
Quite comprehensive.
Yeah, and well, that's what we haven't done it yet, but just to mention, one client also requested that as we have these facilities and we have all this protocol on the confidentiality and security when players come, they wanted to rent the workspace and our personal, but they would bring their own PCs. This is something that some clients have to mention, like, hey, we want to use our PCs because that's another extra layer of security, but we want you to manage all this protocol. That also is something that, although sometimes it's like, yeah, it's the normal process, but you have to make it happen. And doing it so it's not that easy because there's a lot of steps that you have to take into account.
We also have a client request us to travel to another location in another country and set up essentially a pop-up game lab.
Yes, but I don't think that's more in terms of security. It's more because our teammates are a very good team. I don't want to say that, but it's true. Our colleagues are very good at what they do, and they wanted our team to moderate and conduct the project.
Yeah.
In these cases, if we have to go somewhere else, there's certain securities that we cannot guarantee because it's like we have to check on many things from another city that we haven't been there yet. So there's some things that we cannot know. So yeah, in this case, it's more for the team and the execution rather than the security.
Hey, but we're open to it. You know,
exactly.
Sounds good to me.
I mean, if anyone here listening wants to pay me some travel to some country, I have to pay.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah, I heard South Africa is good.
Exactly. I've been cold lately.
but then Kurt can't travel. Like, we've got to make it interesting for Kurt as well.
Exactly.
I heard Japan is great for playtesting.
I mean, Kurt preferably have to go there to check the security and make sure that everything is working properly. That's really. Then we go and execute it.
Sounds like a plan to me, guys.
In defense to Kurt, guys, South Africa is quite a big country. So
True.
It is, and we do have some pretty big studios actually. So one of Devolver's biggest studios is actually down here.
My only problem right now with South Africa is it's cold. That's the only reason.
Yeah, that's me. Give it like another 4 weeks, guys, and then it'll be awesome.
I don't go now because it's cold. So just get away from the heat.
Off topic, John gave the most Spanish answer ever. It's too cold. Yeah, that's funny.
I'm a Mediterranean guy. I know what I like.
Yeah,
that's actually a misconception. As a British person living in Spain, I can tell you that there's nobody more terrified of the heat and the sun than the actual native Spanish people. Like, blinds down, curtains closed. Spanish households tend to be caves during the summertime, and they're smart because then it's us, the English people, who are in hospital because we have second-degree sunburn.
Yeah.
So they're really the intelligent ones. They it's not that they're scared of their sun; it's that they know what their sun is like.
Exactly.
Whereas us Brits, it's like, no, I want to get brown. I want to get a good tan.
And here's to the perfect thing. Do you know why we like to be inside with our shadows and everything? Because we like to be secure, and nothing is as secure as being inside as it's an antidote with the playtesting.
Just 10 out of 10 seconds back into the topic there. That was beautiful.
Yeah, that was beautiful. And what we were discussing is a good podcast episode for different time. But yeah, I wish I could ask you for examples, Costa, for the UX Game Lab, but I know we're bound by NDAs, so we can't give specific examples, unfortunately. But
I mean, let me think, but I'm not sure if I will unknown some other clients or projects that we have checked here. Maybe 9, I don't know. Maybe let me unknown 9 or something like that.
that's very interesting. Yeah, who knows? But speaking of examples, just to wrap up this episode, guys, we touched upon different features and from players and technical side. I wanted to ask you for some examples that we can demonstrate real life use cases that you can share. You don't have to mention the studio, but
there's one that we can mention in different examples.
Yeah.
Dotemu. I mean, they just have used our lab for security for the first test one of the first tests we did with them, and also the cloud gaming feature that they also use for another IP. And this is the one of the what I was mentioning before, that thanks to IT, they had this mix of the cloud streaming with the SDK, and they had all this secure platform to distribute their games, so players play a quite active FPS game. So it was something that, as Kurt was saying before, you don't see every day that you can play a very active game in via Stream Cloud platform. And in both cases, we have continued talking with them, and they are coming back. So I think both cases, in terms of security, they were happy, and also in terms of execution, also they were happy. So yeah, this is something that, and in this case, it's both quite recent.
Yeah, when we spoke to the team at .mo, they were quite happy. So kudos to Kurt and the engineering team for building this feature. But what about you, Mac? You mentioned a lot of scenarios with the confidentiality and different protocols we have. How does it look in practice?
Of course, yeah. There's a lot of various anecdotes I can actually share related to security. I was actually just thinking that there is actually one aspect of security we haven't touched on that much, and so of course here I can sort of get into it a little bit with one particular use case, because the game's already out, and it's public knowledge that we here at Antidote worked on the playtesting side of things. And that was Rematch, the recent football game came from Slow Clap Studios. It was it's a big hit when it released. It was like #1 on Steam for 8-9 days or something on the trot. Very good game, very fun game. And we were fortunate enough to get to work quite closely with the Slow Clap team during, I believe it was 4 months or something like that. And multiple various different scales of tests. And we kept, raising the scale to the point where we were working with thousands and thousands of players simultaneously, because, we were stress testing the servers. Now, of course, you do run into a concern with the more players you're working with, and that is, of course, we're in the day of we're currently in the year of our Lord 2025, and unfortunately, we're living in a time right now where people, because of, this is a whole other podcast topic, but, people are so overstimulated, and quick information, quick gratification has sort of led to a situation where there's a certain percentage of the global population that either doesn't read or refuses or cannot retain what they've read. So
they don't read. That's the first thing in UX. People don't read.
Exactly. Yes.
Masterclass from Joan 101.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's step number one. People don't read. So as we were talking about before, there are all these different measures we put in the communication side of onboarding into a playtest to make sure the player is aware that they are under NDA and they cannot stream, and they cannot share content. But when you're talking about a playtest with thousands and thousands and thousands of participants, there is a percentage of people that have just clicked through the sign-up process and the onboarding journey, and have gotten statistically very, very lucky, just because it's down to probability, isn't it? It's the whole monkeys at a typewriter theory. It's if you have 5,000 people just clicking through a sign-up process, 1 or 2 or 3 of them, without having read a single word of what they've been clicking through, will have clicked on all the right answers and gotten into the playtest without actually being aware of the responsibilities we have put on them of not streaming, of being secure. And of course, we have had a situation like this before, which is why there is another security measure we haven't actually talked about, and I'm going to mention here, is NDA hunting, or NDA breakers hunting, as we've called it before, which is essentially when we are live with these large-scale playtests. And this is something that the clients we've done this for have actually, they really love this, because we almost make a game out of it with some volunteers from our community. We have a few trusted players who, after multiple years of testing with us, we know them. They're close members of, or they're almost like members of the Antidote team in a voluntary way. And we essentially put out a call of, using Bloodborne terminology almost, the hunt has begun. And at this point, we will all flock to, all of your typical streaming platforms, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Kick, etc. And we will, search for keywords related to the game that is being played, back to the example again with Rematch, of these people who are, trying to find and see if there's anyone out there who has broken the NDA and is currently live streaming content. And there has been cases where we found them. And what do we do then? report them. We start messaging in their chat saying, "You're aware this is NDA, right? Stop streaming immediately." We send them email. We locate their emails, backtrack through the sign up process, and find contact methods to send them emails and pings like, not going to use as big a words as cease and desist, but we do use strong words to be like, stop now, or you're going to get in trouble. And if it is a serious offense, obviously we will send a cease and desist. And we have actually previously gotten a channel, I believe, temporarily suspended for breaking our NDAs, because we obviously have all the legal documents to back it up as well. And yeah, we've run into those situations, but we do have these extreme methods, so to speak, to hunt down anyone who has had the goal and the audacity to run to streaming platforms and actually try and stream the games that we're currently playing. And yeah, that's sort of one major example I could think of in practice, how Antidote has handled someone breaking the NDA before. And, the client has come away very happy. They've very much liked how proactive and proactive we are when it comes to these situations, and how we almost try and gamify it. Like we actually get trusted community members involved in the hunt. We actually make like dedicated channels for it. The hunt has begun, and we try and keep it fun but serious as well, because obviously it's a serious topic. They're breaking an NDA at the end of the day. But if you gamify something, you can really get the community involved in helping you stop it. So it's definitely a good case. And obviously there's other measures we take into account as well. After we've run into issues in the past, obviously, Antidote, we're always learning as well. And we've had a sort of a trial and error situation before when it came to, this small percentage of, again, monkeys at the typewriter, people who haven't read the sign-up procedure and have managed to get in by randomly answering without reading. One lesson we did learn is if we talk to our client, and we highly recommend injecting a watermark on the screen of the game for the build that's being playtested that says no streaming and recording allowed, the percentage of people that then stream and record obviously drops dramatically. We still, bring out the hunt and still, coil through all of the different streaming platforms looking for people who are still breaking the NDA despite that watermark on the screen of the game. But that definitely has helped before as well. Definitely. And obviously just always reminding people through every announcement, hey, the playtest is live, everyone get in game. Don't record, don't stream, just repetition. Very important.
But what about you, Kurt? When would the client choose to implement all the features that you mentioned earlier?
I think this is also why it's so important that customers look into the various options that we have, because all of the tooling that we've built around, around like game distribution on our platform, so everything from cloud streaming to the SDK injection, it's super important that they consider these options, because, if we do ever run into the situation where we need to, down streamers, it becomes a lot easier to do that by using all of the tooling that we've built for our customers. As an example as well, as soon as we do find somebody who is streaming, we can also terminate their access from our backend, from our platform, which will terminate the game on their side, will terminate their session as well. It will prevent them from logging into Antidote again, which will also prevent them from starting the game again. And so you can see there's this kind of this lockstep workflow that we have. If the customer chooses to opt into these tools that we do give them. And it's also super important to mention that these tools are free. We don't charge extra for them.
That's big.
They work mostly out of the box. And it's all to make sure that their IP is protected as much as possible, while still giving our players a pain-free experience.
I think one of the things that you mentioned, Kurt, like trying to add the more, I don't know the exact word, but make it more secure as possible. One of the things that, and for example, when I talk to clients, I always try to be as much as transparent and sincere as possible. There's no one that can guarantee you 100% bulletproof secure system. not us, not competitors in our sector or in any other. But the idea here is to add as more barriers as possible for players to not do the leaks. So all these filters at the end is okay. You can. There's always one way or another to do it. But as more barriers you add, the more difficult it is for that people that wants to harm you, to say it that way. And I think that's also to be realistic, because as I said, it's one of the messages that we always get to our clients. We add many fears, nothing is bulletproof, but we are doing our best. And every time we see something that we didn't expect, we find a solution and try to implement it as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like that's what I was talking about the NDA breaker hunters. That's
exactly
like embodies that imperfection. Okay, someone slipped through the cracks. Can't do anything about it now, but we can be proactive and shut down any potential leak as quick as possible.
Right, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for coming today and explaining everything in depth. So now our audience knows how seriously we take security. It was nice to have you, Mac, as the first-time guest. It was great to have Kurt.
Thanks for having me again, guys.
It's great. I'm not going to say that to Costa because you're going to be here again
in the next chapter. Yeah, in the next episode.
And the next. So we'll see you again, Costa.
Leaves that room. That's just that's his reality.
Exactly.
So
being sincere, I don't work. I just appear in the podcast and then I disappear for the rest of the week.
Just to exist, you live in a limbo of a white room.
I'm an AI.
Yeah. I should have been in the last week's podcast about AI, but anyways, thank you, gentlemen. You have a lovely day.
Thanks, guys.
And thank you for coming today.